I can vividly remember finding Kathleen.
Durham police this morning are investigating the death of a prominent city resident. The officers were called early this morning to the home of Nortel executive Kathleen Peterson, who was found dead in her Forest Hills mansion after apparently falling down the stairs. Kathleen Peterson's husband is novelist Michael Peterson, well known for his books on the Vietnam War. He is also a former columnist for the Durham Herald-Sun and ran an unsuccessful mayoral campaign in 1999. Durham police have refused additional comment on the death.
Kathleen and I were in here watching a movie. I'd gone to Blockbusters and rented a video, and we were watching American Sweethearts. And I think it was probably around 11 o'clock that the movie ended. And we took our glasses, left the dinner plates, as a matter of fact, on there. We would clean up the next day. Went into the kitchen. We would talk for hours. Kathleen and I at nighttime would talk 2 or 3 hours, talk about the movie or the kids or what we were going to do. And we came in here. I think there was, I'm not sure, we probably had another bottle I know 2 bottles out. And it was a nice night. I guess it was 55, 60 degrees. Very nice night. And I'd gone outside, and we were talking here for a fair amount of time. And then what we would usually do on a nice night, we would go down to the pool, which I always, thinking about the nicest place on the property.
We've lost the lead.
I don't know if the chairs were like this or not, but I mean, there was probably something like this. And we were both right here. And, the dogs would come over, and we were just talking and finishing our drinks. And then she said, I got to go in because I've got a conference call in the morning. And she started walking out that way. And I stayed right here. Don't think I say anything special to her. Certainly not thinking this is the last time I'm going to see her. Good night. I'll be up a little bit later. And stayed here, and she walked.
Hostile counter UAV.
And the last I saw her was when I was there, and she was just walking here. That's it. That was the last I saw Kathleen. Alive. No. She was alive when I found her, but barely.
Enemy UAV active. Taking effective fire!
It was just such a shock when I drove into the driveway. Seeing an ambulance, it's just like, oh my god, did somebody have a heart attack? Never in your wildest dreams would you think anything. You wouldn't always think. My first thought, of course, was my dad had a heart attack. He was a little older. So when I ran in there and I saw my dad alive, I was a little relieved. And then he was able to mutter the word, something along the lines of, Kathleen, Kathleen, oh my god, this, oh god, Kathleen. And, he was motioning in the direction of the staircase. It's done.
Look around! Enemies deployed to counter UAV.
God, I gotta pay attention.
I'm reloading!
I can vividly remember finding Kathleen. I can remember opening the door. I can remember calling 911. I particularly remember Todd just holding me as tight as possible, I think, to contain me. And I can remember Heather, the doctor, Ben's girlfriend, taking my pulse. And then I can remember, and it must have been very early while I was still in the kitchen, that a cop was on me instantly. Everywhere I went, a policeman was there. I went outside and with Ben, and a policeman was there. And I remember walking down there, and a policeman was there. There was always a policeman with me.
I knew for a fact that no way in this world my father ever would have hurt Kathleen. But the realism of they're investigating it did seem real. While it was completely unfounded in my mind, the way that they were behaving, the way that they were barking orders at us, restricting us from talking to one another, they truly drove home that they were investigating this as a crime.
We came up Sycamore, and you come up and it kind of dead ends into our house, and you just see the yellow tape across the whole house. And it was horrible. It was like, our house, you want to go home, and the yellow tape is right there, and you can't go home. It was the worst thing ever. I remember my dad actually explaining to us. He was just like, he was in shock kind of, and he was just kind of shaking. He was like, I didn't do it. You know, you have to believe it. We're like, Dad, you believe me? You know, this is horrible. Like, how can we not believe you? You know,
I'm reloading!
We didn't even know any details yet. And we were just like, we believe you. We believe you. We know it's not true. And this is horrible. And it was so upsetting. I couldn't believe it, but it was so hard to think about that because at the same time you're thinking about our mother. You know, it was like two bomb shells, I guess, hitting us.
Friendly UAV online. Enemy.
First into the house, I noticed what appeared to be two legs sticking out of a doorway or hallway to my left. And once I approached the victim, it was just a very abundant amount of blood on her, on the floor, on the walls. This was not consistent with somebody falling down the steps.
Friendly cruise missile deployed.
Well, obviously we can't
know exactly what happened. We have to piece together what we believed happened based on the circumstantial evidence that we've uncovered. The only people that know are Mike Peterson and Kathleen Peterson. And obviously Mr. Peterson's going to enlighten us about what he knows. We believe the evidence, at least our evidence, is going to show that she was beaten, that she was stunned and was bleeding, that she probably recovered and struggled in the door frame with Mike Peterson to a degree, and that he then had to bludgeon her multiple occasions after that, and that she basically bled to death.
Live, local, this is ABC 11 Eyewitness News at 6.
The Peterson supporters can't believe he's charged with the murder of his wife, Kathleen.
Kathleen was my life. I whispered her name in my heart 1,000 times. She is there, but I can't stop crying.
But a special grand jury decided today there was sufficient evidence gathered by police to warrant a trial in this case. The charge, first-degree murder. Now, 11 days after frantically calling 911 seeking help for his wife, Michael Peterson must spend the night inside the Durham County Jail.
Her and Mike had an absolutely loving relationship, and there is no way that either of them would ever wish any sort of harm on the other one.
Kathleen Peterson's biological daughter, Caitlin Atwater, served as the main spokesperson for the Peterson family. She stood shoulder to shoulder with Peterson's biological sons and their sisters, adopted by Kathleen and Mike Peterson.
It's going to be the most
That could have been bad.
unbelievably heartbreaking Christmas we could ever imagine. We already lost one mother, another state was taken away. Our father.
In my mind, if Mike finds Kathleen at the bottom of the stairs, it's a reasonable assumption on his part that she fell down the stairs.
Peterson's attorney, David Ruth, says the authorities seem to have jumped to conclusions about Kathleen's death.
For us, if in fact the police are right that this was not a fall, that should be the beginning of the investigation, not the end of the investigation.
Threat neutralized. You're clear. The mission's complete. Good work.
So far, what I've been saying to the press basically is we think it's an accident, but until our experts look at it, we really can't say whether it's an accident or an intruder. What we know for sure is that it has nothing to do with Michael.
The benefits of an intruder theory is it's simpler. There's no debate over the forensics for the most part. The real problem with the intruder theory is kind of lack of evidence that there was an intruder. Right. The intruder would then have to have a weapon with them capable of inflicting these wounds, but not a knife or a gun.
Right.
And take that weapon with them.
Right.
Mike clearly came and reacted to the scene.
Right.
But what you don't really seem to have is this, shoe prints leaving the scene. That an intruder clearly wanted to get the hell out of there.
It seems to me what the intruder versus accident theory really boils down to is what caused the laceration to the head.
Well, I agree. I mean, the injuries that sound to me, they're just not a rage type injuries in comparison to with a rage, you'd have skull fractures. You'd have, have a lot of major lacerations in her face. I've never met anybody that just stood still and waited to be hit on the head 4 times or 7 times.
She had to stand still and let her back of her head get beaten by an intruder without moving around. It would be bizarre.
Well, everything that I've heard about Kathleen and learned about her is she's a very feisty woman. And there's no way that she's going to allow anybody to beat her up without fighting back. And there are no signs whatsoever that she fought back. I just don't see a crime of rage. And all the experience I had, it's just not there.
Hey.
See you.
Yeah, for some reason. It's juice now. Where's the coffee?
Deathmatch.
You didn't make it?
Coffee's not made.
Oh, shit. Is this the book here?
Yeah, that's the book that Mike and I co-wrote.
Charlie Two Shoes, Grades of Blood.
Came out in late 1998.
This last time you spoke with Kathleen was a couple days before her death.
Yeah, it was really the night before. Essentially the night before.
Okay.
It was on the 7th of December, Friday evening. I had spoken with Stratton Leopold, who is a producer in Hollywood, and we had been talking to him for about a year about the possibility of him optioning this book for a movie. And he called me that afternoon, and said it was a done deal, everything was official. And so I called Mike just after that, we were 6 o'clock that evening, and Kathleen answered the phone, and we spent maybe 10 minutes talking on the phone. And
now, that night you spoke to her about 10 minutes. Did you talk to Mike too that evening?
Yeah, we must have been talking in the kitchen because I said, well, is the old man there? Kathleen and I were the same age, and Mike was about 10 years older, and she said, yeah, the old man is here, but he's going to have to empty the dryer and mop the kitchen floor before he comes to talk. They always had a very playful way with each other, and I could hear him chuckling in the background.
Did you... Did there appear to be any pressure between each other, frustration between that? Between Mike and Kathleen on this night?
They were absolutely normal. They were like I always saw them or heard them. As I said, they were playful. Sensed no stress or tension between them. Just absolutely normal. And that's why it's such a stretch to think that they went from this normal, playful back and forth between each other to something that is homicidal. It just makes absolutely no sense to me. It's inconceivable.
And it's impossible for me to believe if that's the back of her head, that could be caused from the series of missteps, fall down 15 different stairs. I can't see that happening. This is work with the master. That's, in my perspective, an impossibility. And again, like indicates, the medical examiner doesn't believe that it was possible either. But this blood to occur from multiple inflictions of blunt force.
If they have a witness who can say that she went down the stairs like a pogo stick head first, bouncing along, then that might fit. But somehow I don't think that's the way people fall down the stairs.
From my experience as an investigator in law enforcement officer, it was just not consistent with fall down a flight of steps. And that's why, I moved out and went and obtained an application to obtain a search warrant so quick.
You can't look at that and think that it's an accident. And especially when you couple it with the fact that the first, you've heard the 911 tape, but the first call in, she's supposedly still breathing. The second call in, 15 minutes later or so, she's just quit breathing. And yet when the medical examiners or the EMTs arrived, the blood was so drawn that they didn't even get any on. They didn't have to wear protective garments because the blood was already dry. She'd been there for hours probably. It never occurred to Mike Peterson people to believe he said she fell down the stairs. That's really what this is all about. He thought he'd get away with it.
This is ABC 11 Eyewitness News at 6.
Sir, would be small answer to that question.
In an occasionally tense bond hearing today, Mike Peterson's son Todd verbally scuffled with the judge and district attorney. With shackled ankles and often with tears streaming down his face, Mike Peterson sat by, emotional, listening to character witnesses before the judge agreed to let him go on $850,000 bond. Peterson left the Durham County Jail just after 6 p.m.
I really want to go home. I want to see my kids. And this is the first opportunity I've had now to grieve for my wife. And I really would like to have that time.
As his lawyers now turn to the facts of the case, Peterson turns to his Romanian family, glancing at his first glimpse of Sky outside the jail, chased by cameras. Even back at home, where friends arrive with groceries, Mike Peterson won't have time alone.
It always seemed to me that the greatest threat to our freedom came not from people who committed crimes, but from the way the government tends to respond to that, and the way the government tends to take on power for itself, almost as though there's a vacuum that someone has to fill and the government's going to fill it. And so, for me, being in the role of a criminal defense lawyer is being in the role of a person who can do at least a little bit to hold back some of the government excesses, to make sure that we don't lose our freedoms in an effort to protect them. In Michael's case, there's no doubt in my mind that he is not guilty of this. And so for me, being able to help him establish his innocence is really what is moving me at this point.
Let me ask a question. In the experience that you've seen, whether somebody was hit with something versus falling on a blunt type, blunt type contact, are these very consistent, or are there variations here?
I would tend to consider the lacerations as second choice in my thought of what occurred here. The first choice is the presence of the bruises, not the presence of the lacerations. The presence of the lacerations is misleading, because you see a whole lot of laceration and you say, oh my God, I did that too at the beginning. I looked at that and said, oh my God, that's terrible. Yeah. They say, boom, 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 it's all effect. But when you keep looking at it, then you see things you didn't see before. That's why I keep telling people, you should never look at the picture just one time. You look at it on Monday, and on Tuesday, and then on Friday, and then on Monday. Then every time you look at it, it's a new thing. And so, when at the beginning I thought that maybe it was an elongated object, I think I've changed my mind.
That's reasonably consistent with a flat object, meaning if it's a curvature.
This wound here had to have been at least 2 impacts. This one here had to have been at least 1 impact. This area here, this area here are splits. They did not make it. The impact here. And then so when you take one of the splits, tear the inflection right. So we've got 1 impact here, we've got 1 impact. We said several times, it could be 1 point. So it did, yeah, fatal occurrence 3 points. Think the one of that. It's going to be
Effective fire.
First one you keep doing it. Yep. We didn't notice as a modding area. You see first, can you see that? And dripping. Liquid source. Worst of we see some corner area, which means active bleeding still. And the most interesting thing, we found some hair tissue material on this molding. You see some damage on the molding.
Yeah, there's some fiber there.
I checked on the ceiling and no cast-off pattern. Generally, if somebody beat up somebody, we see a cast-off pattern.
Sure.
And here, it's not. So however, Abel's weapon is too confined in place. Very small place.
Yeah, it'd be very hard to have the energy with just the energy level.
Yeah.
How do you get your spatter coming up this wall here, kind of behind this?
Okay, either it could be a possibility somebody coughing. So we want to have it's not inhale, it's exhale.
But if she's coughing up pure blood like here, wouldn't she have a fracture of the base of the skull or an injury to
maybe just my blood comes here, place, I'm to nose or mouth. Oh, external, yeah. External.
The redhead spins thing. It's not from internal bleeding.
Yeah, it's external stuck into the system.
Hey, cool.
They're going to hit that.
The risk. You don't need the expert testimony to say, oh, she must have been beaten. That's the thought that pops in your head.
Without explanation, it's hard to imagine how does somebody fall down a step and end up with these kind of bloods.
Right.
And, I think that really needs to be addressed in terms of, finding out, what do people just think on their own, and then putting out the defense explanation of it.
Our experts conclude that she probably fell and knocked herself out the first fall. With lots of bleeding coming from the head.
Where did they say she fell?
Probably on the second or third step going up. You can see it here.
Okay.
This is where it's turned. And you can see how narrow the steps are here. Plus, you're going from the light, a lighted hallway or a lighted kitchen, and this is very dark. There's no lighting immediately over this. There's only a light at the top of the stairs. She had a .07, whatever, going from light to dark. And you've got these stairs. So everything, she tripped one of these stairs here and hit her head, fell backwards and hit her head probably somewhere up here. And then there's a little bit of blood. It looks like her head slid down or something. And then hit her head again.
She fell backwards, hit her head against the door frame.
Right, and then fell on the floor. Right. Right, so you got two hits. Yeah, and that she's unconscious then, bleeding on the floor for some period of time. And then she comes to after some period of time and tries to get up, and there's blood on the bottom of her feet. And you know, in order for there to be blood on the bottom of the sheet, there needs to be a fair amount of blood on the floors, and because it's not just like a speck or two.
Right.
All right. Right. And that she then fell again. You know, it's very obviously if you're trying to get up in blood, it's incredibly slippery. And fell again.
Taking effective fire.
They fell right there.
We need to stop. Today's birthdays. Let's say that's fine.
When I think of Kathleen, what I remember, unfortunately, is her dying in my arms. That's always the overwhelming image. I look at something and I think, oh yeah, there's this funny thing, or picture on the refrigerator where she's in Imperial Gardens in Tokyo, where there's so many things that always, if I stop and think, not one thing comes up, never one thing. Or if I think, oh, that's a shiny moment, I'll see a picture of something else or another incident might occur, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's that one. So there's not one identifying thing with Kathleen, no.
Taking effective fire.
Friendly UAV online. Hostile UAV in the area.
Taking fire.
First people we have is Michael Peterson and Patty. What year were they married?
They were married in 1966. Do you know if they got married in the States? Or were they married?
I think they were married in the States because after they were married, Mike went to Vietnam, Patty went to Germany. She was a teacher in Germany. And so after Mike got out of Vietnam, then he went to Germany. While they were in Germany, they had two sons. The oldest is Clayton. And the next child was Todd. So they had two boys of their marriage.
And both of the boys were born in Germany.
Both the boys were born in Germany, and Clayton is the oldest one. Mike was a retired Marine captain, and when he got to Germany, one of his better friends was George Ratliff, who was a captain in the Air Force. And Elizabeth worked with Patty at the college. They both taught at the same college. And that's how Patty and Elizabeth got together as good friends. And then Mike and George, both being captains, became good friends. After George and Liz were married, they had two children. Margaret is the oldest daughter, and Martha, the youngest. Shortly after the birth of Martha, George died in 1983 in an invasion in Grenada. It's 2 years after George died. Liz dies in 1985 while living in Germany. At this time, the entire Peterson family and the Ratliff family are living in Germany. During this period of time, after George and Liz died, after Liz died, Martha and Margaret move in with Mike and Patty, Todd and Clayton,
because George and Elizabeth and their wills, separate wills, wanted Mike and Patty to be the caretakers for their children. Mike and Patty started having problems, and Mike came back to the United States. In what year was it that he met Kathleen?
He met Kathleen in 1986.
So he met her in 1986. Kathleen had a daughter named Caitlin. What year did they move in together?
That was in 1989.
And that's when Martha and Margaret became one family under the same roof with Mike. So Mike and Kathleen living together, and they had the 3 girls, and there was moving back and forth, and eventually Todd and Clayton moved in with Mike and Kathleen in Durham, North Carolina. So how old were each one of the kids at the time of Kathleen's death in 2001?
Her daughter, Caitlin, was 19. Margaret, the oldest, was 20. The baby Martha was 18. Clayton was 27. And Tom was 25. When Kathleen died.
And that was in the year 2000?
2001.
Friendly UAV on station. Hostiles deploy the Mosquito.
Stay low!
After your mother died, your real mother died, who took care of you?
My dad, right now, Michael Peterson, and his wife Patty.
Now, your dad died before your mother did.
Yes.
And you were probably still a baby in your mother's womb, weren't you not? At that time, or were you born?
No, I was about 6 months old.
6 months old? How old were you when your mom died?
I was 18.
18 months.
Oh, my birth mom. I'm sorry.
You birthed mom. I'm sorry.
I think I was a little over 10.
Okay. So you have very little memory.
Yeah, I don't. All my memory is what people have told me.
Okay.
So I don't know.
And how did you start referring to Kathleen when you moved in the house with her?
Well, we called her Kathleen for a good while. I started calling her mom once.
Making effective fire.
I was always about a freshman in high school. So about 5 years ago. And that's when I started to, because I realized how much she was doing for us.
Tell me about the relationship between Mike and Kathleen. I mean, refer to them as mom and dad. I don't want to discourage you in that. Now that we know who you're talking about, just tell me what the relationship between your mom and dad.
Well, it was wonderful. I mean, they were so happy that last year. They were just, it was beautiful. They were just really happy. They loved each other. They didn't ever fight usually, and they just took so much joy in each other's presence. I mean, we would laugh all the time. They would just come home and make dinner and, drink some wine or something. And it was just beautiful because we would just end up laughing the whole night. And I would just talk to mom forever. I don't know. It was really beautiful. I never saw any problems.
Now, you say usually.
Did I?
At one point you did. Did you ever see any problems between the two of them? Were there ever any discussions?
No, the only problems were mom would just get frustrated at dad for not coming home from the gym on time. And that was just because of dinner, but that always ended with everybody just, I mean, that was the only problem, but it was really such a small problem that it was almost a joke.
Do you think if there would have been any problems between her and your dad, that she would have maybe not necessarily told you the problems, but she would have let you know that Mike is doing something she doesn't appreciate?
Yeah. Yeah, she definitely would have. She was always straightforward with us. I mean, if there was ever like a problem in the family, you know, between like any of us or between like Martha and Dad, you know, like Dad hates Martha's haircut or changing her hair color, you know. I mean, we had family dinner every day, so it was really hard to bring that up in conversation. I mean, like, we were a very open family. I always felt like we could talk about anything, and I know that Mom talked about it with us.
How about the relationship between Kathleen and your dad?
It was always very strong. I was kind of jealous of it and happy for him because his relationship with my mom had never been romantic or intimate or anything like that. You know, very platonic. I don't see him happy with the old woman, Kathleen. The two of them were just really good together. They just connected on a different plane.
And was there ever a time where your dad got really, really mad at you, where he showed his temper or anything like that? I mean, that to me, that'd have been probably the worst.
That wasn't actually. I mean, it might have been, you know, for other things. I mean, Lord must have done stupid things, wrecked his car, things like that.
Did he ever hit you?
Yeah.
Spank you or hit you?
It's mostly spanking. You know, sometimes he'd probably blow his head together. I mean, this was when we were young.
Stay alive.
Not really crack your head.
Yeah. Yes.
You've seen your dad violence towards anybody?
No. He disciplined us as children, but that's parental discipline.
Does he ever hit you?
He spanked us when we were children, but I don't have a friend who wasn't spanked. As far as actual aggressive behavior, never. And it's to another, let's say, non-child of his, meaning an adult, a partner, a wife, nothing. Even when he and my birth mother would have disagreements, nothing. He was always my dad's kind of judge and walk off. He never, ever became aggressive in the slightest sense.
We've lost the lead. Watch for movement. I see an enemy. We've secured the lead.
Bye.
The enemy's taken the lead.
Sorry about it. I'm getting ready. Good day. This will be very close to where we live. Yeah, because she came over, she smoked cigarettes, she threw cigarettes out in there. There may have been another cheerleader. That's right, that's okay. But I mean, we'll talk about it. That's fine. All right, that's why she's close enough. Okay. I'm going to talk to hold off until we get the dogs out here, right?
Forward, and as soon as you push it, step back on the way. And it's like staying in the kitchen. Okay. If I want to have a tradition table, right? Make sure everything else is fucking up. Okay.
I can testify that his doors are well fitted.
You ready?
This is ABC 11 Eyewitness News at 6.
Caitlin Atwater knows a year can change a life forever.
It's too much to even really say.
1 year ago today, her mother, Kathleen Peterson, died. At first, Caitlin believed she fell down the staircase as she was told. Now, she believes Michael Peterson murdered her mother, and she's certain Peterson will be convicted in a criminal trial next spring.
Why do you think Michael would want to kill your mother? I think that the Michael that I knew would not want to kill my mom. I think that I didn't know him in the way that, I think that I couldn't tell you why because I didn't know the person who killed my mom. That's not who he held himself out to be. It doesn't change any of my memories. It doesn't change the fact that I thought that they were happy together. But you don't end up at the bottom of the stairs under those circumstances if your life was what everyone thought it was.
From what we found, every aspect of Mike Peterson's life. He wasn't wounded in Vietnam. He's not. I mean, he obviously served, and I'm sure that he served bravely. But when he came back from serving in Vietnam to Okinawa, injured in a Jeep accident, comes back to the States or even wherever he's ever lived, he's told everybody that he was injured in the war. That's just absolutely not true. There is obviously other aspects of his personality. He wanted to give the appearance that this was a wholesome, blended, functioning family. Well, that simply is not true. The evidence is going to show that he was having an illicit relationship, that we believe she likely found out about that based upon information that we found near the computer and was contained in the computer. The evidence is going to show that he is bisexual and that he was having a relationship with a man outside of this county.
I believe that she had a phone call from a person that worked at Nortel about an upcoming trip that she was going to take, that sometime perhaps after that phone call, which could have been anywhere between 10:30 and 11 o'clock, she discovered this information in the computer, which, even to the persons that know her well, they've told us that, including especially her sister, that she would have been infuriated knowing that her husband, who she truly loved, was bisexual and having an extramarital relationship, not with another woman, but even with a man, which would be humiliating and embarrassing. We believe that once she learned this information, that an argument ensued and a homicide occurred.
Yes, I've known about the bisexuality since I was about, I can't remember, 13 or 14 years old. And I learned about it from a friend. And my parents knew. And it's, just part of his life since that time.
And I felt from the beginning that the prosecution was going to go there, that this was be an important theme for them. And the reason I believe that is because when they executed the search warrant, the police, the second search warrant, the first was December 9th or 10th. The second was the evening of the wake, the following Wednesday. And they were here for several hours, and then they left. But when they left the house, and we came back into the house, they left a picture on a table in the den. The table was completely clean, nothing on it except one picture. And the picture was from his computer, which they had taken. They had downloaded or printed off this picture, and it was pornographic. And it was a message. I knew that was a message. They left it there on purpose so that we would see it and that we would find it. And what the message was to me and to him, we know what you're like. We know the secret life of yours. And we don't like it. And we're going to do something about it.
I was looking at here, dealing with photographs that were taken from his computer, and most of them are sexual military men. And they're all different things that they're doing, but multiple partners. But they're all portrayed as being gay military men. Former sexual acts of each other. Taking effective fire. And part of one of the persons that we believe that he had a relationship with. We believe he met this person from a website that once again was designed for homosexual military men. And this individual that has been interviewed and that we know about, that we believe had some type of relationship with Mr. Peterson, contemporaneous with the time period that we've been talking about, it's right in the zone. It's not the type of thing your typical average juror or typical average citizen would want to access, nor would want to play out in their personal lives. Not if they want to portray themselves as someone that has this perfect marriage, or however he wants to make his life seem so perfect with his wife.
But it's actually very powerful information that he wants kept from the public in particular, but certainly the jury. Because it could be very damaging from a lot of perspectives.
Ammo box destroyed.
You got his statement. What'd he say?
Said you had sex with him.
Oh, you're shitting. 4 or 5 times. Where?
I don't know all the details because I was skimming through all the stuff.
You're kidding me.
That's what he's claiming. That's what he's claiming. Everybody wants a piece of you. Jeez. Really? Everybody claims to have a piece of you. One of the two.
Did you have a statement?
Yeah, we copied it.
Send me a copy of that statement. I'm dying to see it.
I'll get it tomorrow.
Was it a short statement, a long statement?
About a page and a half.
Okay.
Handwritten.
Handwritten? Okay. He did indicate where this great love affair took place.
Yeah, but Mike, I cannot remember it. I'd rather know now than later. So I talked to Dave about Dennis, and we're going to rethink. We're going to digest the statements and rethink as to how to approach it.
Okay. Right. Jesus Christ. Okay. Well, if you say relationship, that would mean that would imply more than, sex, for instance. And that never happened. I mean, I'm not that multifaceted, that I could have more than a relationship. I'm a monogamous person in the fact that I don't. There was Kathleen. She took up my whole life. Could I have sex? Yes. that could exist, but not a relationship. I could not, go to dinner, or have a, it would be inconceivable that because she fulfilled all of that, and actually fulfilled, certainly sexual, but there was this other aspect of me that just existed, and I, yes, did have sex.
No injuries to Mike Peterson, good fact. Search and vehicle, good fact. That would have bad number of leverage. Good relationship between them.
Imprecise statement from Peterson about what happened.
Good, no motive at all.
Well, that's not exactly.
Oh, okay.
Never intimate says bad.
That's no affairs, no affairs.
Never intimate.
Good fact, that bad Mike ignoring 911 operators. Quick. Good fact, call. Great. Bad fact. Good fact, he was breathing. First of all. Good fact, said she was breathing.
Okay, she said she was breathing. Good anything?
Yeah.
What was this thing? Emails.
By any emails. Bad affair, dirty man. Stay affair.
And nobody knew about the bisexual.
Bisexuality kid. Good fact. Yeah.
Did she know? The fact can say that she knew that he was bisexual. Anybody besides Mike?
Yes.
Todd and Mike are the only two people. That is a negative. And that is a big, huge negative, I think. Is there anything in this room that she probably didn't know?
Let's go back to the truth for a second. Reality, the relationship was a beautiful relationship, and I think and a loving relationship, and I think we can prove it. We know that there is a bisexual hidden life here. We know that. Is it possible, I'm sitting there as a juror, is it possible that a marriage can function that way? And the answer is, it can. And marriages do function that way.
Do you think that merely because he was bisexual would make it more likely to you that he would murder? That's the right question.
What the state is trying to do is prejudice the jury against this guy. It's got nothing to do with the evidence of guilt or innocence in this case, because they want to attack him for his personal rights or what have you. If that's all you've got, folks, if that's all the state's got, we know you're going to.
Let's assume that all this bad stuff comes in. We got to ask ourselves, what can Mike do to counteract that versus making it culture?
I think that if all he's going to do is get out and say, I wasn't having an affair at the time, and she knew I was bisexual, that will not have any credibility at all.
My approach has always been, I'm not going to put my client on the stand unless it becomes absolutely essential, unless there is something he can do that I have to have done to make him as well. And unless I'm convinced that we're going to lose the case, unless he gets out of stand.
I think Mike can come across pretty well
on direct. Whether he stands up and talks is a different issue, but I think he can be caught. And some of the bad stuff we may have to deal with anyway. Mike is on the witness stand, and a good cross-examiner is going to be able to make his actions seem unreasonable.
And once he gets on the stand, too, they can start bringing up impeachment, can't they? All the stuff.
Sure. You don't always know
I try to.
Well, I understand you try to, but sometimes when it doesn't suit you,
You lie about certain things, don't you?
What do you mean by that?
Well, for example, in your marital race, it wouldn't have helped you very much to admit that you had actually gotten your injuries in a car accident, right? In a book jacket, you painted yourself as having gotten these injuries in Vietnam, right?
This is true.
And you kept that lie going for years, didn't you? Right? Without Michael on the stand, whatever gay stuff gets in, I can argue they have so little real evidence here that they're getting into his private sex life. I mean, even if we have to concede it, what does it have to do with, and I can sort of get into it as gay bashing, and sort of, as opposed to it becoming a credibility thing with Michael having to admit, I've had homosexual relationships, but not with him. I mean, what good does that do us?
Michael's the only one who can deny an active, current homosexual relationship.
Well, you know what?
I'm not going to say it.
Hey, let me tell you, his credibility versus the email. Oh, my God. Come in. His denial will have no credibility. We had to suppress the
let's talk about that for a second. Mr. Peterson, you claim that Dennis Rao is just lying, making this up? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Well, Dennis Rao didn't make up those emails on your computer, did he?
No, those emails are fine.
Sir, my question was, Dennis Rao didn't make up those emails, did he? You wrote those emails, didn't you? You wrote the emails saying that you wanted to suck so-and-so's dick, didn't you?
No. Are there emails saying that?
Yes, sir. To two different people. Brad and... Have you forgotten? Didn't you want to suck their dicks?
We take a moment. Yeah, it has to be in the afternoon, but at night, my wife is home.
Yeah, swallow her.
Together.
Can you say for him what your goals are for this session?
Yeah.
And certainly, if things come up in terms of testimony that David wants to spend time with, he may veer in a million different directions. But just in terms of us together and using this time for the space and the configurations of the work.
Yeah, I'm not so interested, Mike, in particular substance right now. What I'm really interested in is getting you up in a witness chair, talking with a jury, and not going into some role that's designed to shield what's inside. What I'm hoping is that the role you play up on the jury, up in the witness box, is the role that you played with Kathleen, in terms of just who you are. Yeah, I want the jury to see the same person that Kathleen saw.
Okay. You sing around the house to yourself, don't you? I thought I heard you. What's a song you hum?
I don't think that is a song.
Oh, what's a song you know? It's from when you...
Yeah. It is a sort of a dum-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. Just because there's always trouble. Is this the dee-dee-dee song? The da-da-da song?
Now let the hands out of the pockets and just walk, just easy. Louder. So now send it to that steed in the jury box. To a specific place, so it's wide.
I have to go back to Do, Re, Mi. Do.
Go to America the Beautiful, but we're going to be asking you about your sex life, my friend. So just let's get some.
That might be easier than singing.
Add some sound. I slid a sheet.
I slit a sheet.
A sheet I slit.
A sheet I slit.
Upon a slitted sheet I sit.
Upon a slitted sheet I sit.
I slid a sheet I slid. Upon a slitted sheet I sit. Don't protect yourself. I slid a sheet I slid. Upon a slitted sheet I sit. Do it.
I should have slid a sheet and sat upon the slitted sheet.
No, I slid a sheet I slid. Upon a slitted sheet I sit.
I should have sleet.
Good. And that's just the deal. You may misspeak. A word like shit may come out. You may make a mistake. Big deal. Mr. Peterson, I want to read you something. And I'm going to ask you after you've heard it if you recognize it. Did your friend die for anything? I hope so, if only because there is something in him that lives in you. Every man who dies can live on in us.
I think I wrote that. Hope I did.
Do you believe it to be true as you sit here today?
Yes.
Reloading.
What parts of Kathleen live on in you?
Online. Enemy UAV active.
Good. We don't need to hear the answer now. Just your willingness to go there was enough. Good.
Okay, Mr. Peterson, you're under oath. Correct?
Yes.
And you expect this jury to believe you.
Yes.
Treat you as an honest person.
Yes.
But the truth is, there have been times in your life where you have lied because it benefited you.
I would say probably that's a good characterization, although I might say it's easier. It was just easier sometimes to let the lie come out.
And, for example, now you married Tricia Peterson in 1966. Isn't that correct? And during your marriage, you had a number of affairs.
Yes.
They were not all women, were they?
No.
And you did continue to have affairs even after your relationship with Kathleen began.
That's to me mean, how do you describe one incident or?
The word affairs is confusing to you?
Yes.
Well, let's make it simple. Sir, you had sex with other people after your relationship with Kathleen began.
That's correct.
Men?
That's correct.
Any men? No. Just men?
Yes.
So now this was different from when you were married to Patty Peterson.
Changing mags.
Yes.
Okay. How many different men did you have sex with after you started your relationship with Kathleen Peterson?
Mission failed. Return to base.
Maybe 6.
Not sure.
Maybe 5. Maybe 7. Somewhere in that number.
In fact, you never talked about that with Kathleen.
Well, we did talk about it.
That you were having sex with other men during the marriage?
In the sense that, yes, she understood that.
She understood it was with men?
Oh, yes.
And you actually told her that?
It was simply understood again that, no, I think it would have been for some strange reason, maybe been more upsetting to her if it had been other women. I think that might have threatened her more. I don't know. But in all the conversations that we'd have, all the jokings, every time we go to a military base, they're just like you. They're all gay. Look, they're all touching each other, patting each other all the time. I think that there was enough awareness on her part of me as a person and who I was, which is what made this relationship so good, that yes, she understood these aspects about me and was not bothered by that because I loved her. That yes, I did have sex with other people. that had absolutely nothing to do with not loving Kathleen or loving her less.
Mike, what do you think? How are you feeling compared to, say, what we did earlier in the office?
We have no clue.
Honestly?
Honestly.
My sense is that you are not parsing. You are not trying to win on any technicalities. I saw nobody who was being tricky, someone who assumed responsibility, and someone who within
and I told you this, guys, from the beginning. My ass life totally is in your hands, and I know that. And I'm not going to outsmart you. I'm not going to outsmart Harden. I'm not going to outsmart anybody. And I'm going to tell you this.
At one point, you actually even leaned into the wind, physically. And it was a cold wind. So I thought, okay, he's going to be fine.
Team deathmatch. Eliminate the enemy. Leave none alive.
Number one, I want to talk about additional survey stuff to give us more insight on what I would call triggers, key questions. So, how do you
We didn't do it last time. The reasons you expressed seems like that reason still applies. We're not doing it.
Well,
But it's a big issue.
You would hide it in a list of questions like, what are your views about heterosexuals? You know, you'd have a whole list of...
It's probably like marriage.
Right.
You know, what are the compromises and what can you accept it within a marriage? That kind of thing, rather than just go on the issue by...
We're going to need to find out their attitude towards homosexuality.
Oh, we will. We could do it that way.
And you got to ask it of at least 400 or 500 people to have a statistically meaningful sample. And so, you know, we're talking about a significant expenditure, but in my mind, you know, if you were choosing between this and in this case, I'd choose this.
The survey, the data, then some conclusions,
Which is going to cost what?
It's probably going to be either $35, $40,000.
so that's a total of, we have to come up with, carry this case to $385,000.
I mean, you guys are spending money, and you know, Mike, it's your life, right? But I'm just telling you that sometimes what you find out is intuitive, and sometimes what you find out is counterintuitive. And it's the counterintuitive stuff that you just would never know. You know, you find out one thing that's counterintuitive in that survey for $35,000, and it's mighty cheap. It's mighty cheap when you stack it up against the rest of your life.
Okay.
Get it down.
So it's going to cost 700, we know for 750 to 800. I think we were originally thinking 550 or something like that. I remember. We were thinking to the others. And again, what if you know, that to get off? Well, that's the only reason the rich get off is because they can afford to defend themselves. The damn poor go to jail because they can't afford to defend themselves. Period. Not an application. What would somebody do?
Fuck off.
First of all,
She's camping on the fucking roof. Being a fucking schoolgirl.
They don't get hired and proof that no, this didn't happen. It's not very easy. The American, that's just it. Very, very much. deathmatch.
Hostiles launched the cruise missile.
The end of this light. This is the end of the white name. Everything is white. Everybody is white. So across the street, everything is black. This is the biggest scandal in Durham, right here. They put in millions of dollars to build these houses that they were going to be for poor people. And it's just crooked. It's never developed. The houses are not occupied. It's in bankruptcy. They built these apartments. Look at that. These are only a few years. They're falling apart. It's just a travesty. And it's a beautiful, as you can see, it's a beautiful piece of property. It overlooks the city. This is one of the nicest areas. This is the story of Durham. Promises and promises, and then corruption, theft, lies.
Hostile UAV in the area.
When I came to Durham for the first time in 1961, over 40 years ago, I just couldn't believe that blacks couldn't go to school with white people. They couldn't eat in restaurants. They were not much better than in slavery times. And after 40 years, there are definitely some rich blacks, and certainly society has gotten better. But in many regards, it's just as bad. In some cases, it's worse than it ever was. And all we do in this town is deal with the real problems. Drugs, ignorance. And nobody wants to talk about that. I find that, for instance, in my case, every day, phones, newsprint, ink, paper, all the media, everybody is focused on my trial. It's a diversion. It's something that, it's an entertainment, it's a show. And if one-tenth of that amount of time of media exposure, if it were given to what's real and what's true, the problems, things would get better. It was 4 years ago, 1999. I was writing about Rolling Hills, that place that we just saw. That's when I was starting with that. It's mostly about corruption. It's all 5% farmers. Why? Despite an onslaught of publicity on how the streets are safer and drug traffic reduced, one figure remains truly alarming: the clearance rate of crime. Police solve about 5% of reported crimes, while ticket collection is, by comparison, an impressive 33%. Then there's this one. I didn't attack the DA really often. And it says, basically, the DA's got a hard thing for bingo. So he sends the cops out to close down the bingo parlors. Why? Because he can't get anybody for anything else. My God, there's more crime in City Hall than in Southern Italy. The DA and cops can't catch any real criminals in City Hall, so they go after underage voters and bingo players. So, I mean, it was just a commentary, and I didn't attack him personally. I didn't say anything about his personal life. I wouldn't know anything about his personal life, and I would say anything about anybody's personal life anyway. But everybody knows, and I should have certainly known better, that when you make fun of people, they don't like it. It's just that simple. If you make them look silly or ridiculous, they remember that.
Yes.
I put it down.
It's 34. Sure it's 33.
Check fire! Deathmatch. You are cleared to engage any and all threats.
This is on top. Lots of blood smears and blood splatters. That's basically the last one.
We've lost the lead.
But here it is. But you would get lost. 1 millimeter to approximately 4 millimeters. 3 inches by 200 inch. Plus splatter, ADL too.
See, now I looked at those and I thought, okay, bloody pants. I would have spent 3 minutes.
Oh, fuck off, dude.
And it's a whole different story.
You can see these blood stain. Basically, you have multiple deposits. You have a blood spatter underneath it, you have under blood stain, and in addition to blood stain. That tells me it's not coming out of one. It's multiple.
And that's what Warner is saying about the fact that she wouldn't have lost consciousness.
I was saying she has to be conscious. Guy got up and sit up on supporting. Itself can tell us a story. She was off. And there was some time in writing.
The fact that you got less blood in here, is there any chance that she's on her knees, slouched over because there's more blood on this side than there is on that side, against the wall?
This party probably just when they put initially put the towel, maybe her body was up her ear.
I'm sure that's right.
Do you see what I mean, Ron? That's the position when they took the picture.
Right.
Changing mags!
We have to look at the scientific fact and base our interpretation purely on the scientific fact. The first thing I look at the scene, I notice there's tremendous amount of blood spatter. Ordinary beating up scene, we don't see that much blood spatter. The second thing I notice, all the blood spatter come from different directions. You have a beating in a same direction, repetitively, in theory, we should be most spatter comes from one direction, goes to other direction. The third area I feel strange is I examine the upper wall, the ceiling, carefully, inch by inch. In the staircase area, I did not see a single blood spatter on the ceiling constitute as a cast off.
Mr. Lee seemed to, the only thing he wanted to prove was that it wasn't a beating. He never even wanted to consider that it could be. He never even wanted to think that it was possible. He only wanted to say that it wasn't.
Unfortunately, I think that Lee was trying to, was that too much was being paid to try to convince somebody of something. That's the impression I got from him.
I thought that Lee, he was terribly difficult to understand. As a result, I found my mind wandering, so that there were a lot of questions that he might have answered, but I don't remember. And I felt that he just took the evidence and stretched it to fit whatever he needed to counteract what the defense was saying.
Okay, when I first heard him, I thought, man, this guy reminds me of my junior year calculus teacher. You know, I couldn't understand him. But, you know, after, I think he's very qualified. I actually really think he knows what he's talking about. He comes off
kind of hokey because I couldn't understand him. But I think if he had been given a little more latitude, he may have been able to convince me a little more about what he was talking about.
Okay.
He didn't come up with anything that really made a plausible other explanation for what happened. It still didn't make a very good case for it being just a fall down the stairs. So I was left kind of wondering, well, if he doesn't think it was a beating, what was it?
Okay. Thank you.
I'm just very freaked out.
One of the things we've got to think about when you think of Dr. Lee is that this is not California. This is not New York City. This is the South. And I think that part of what we're hearing here is a reaction to ethnic differences. I mean, it's difficult. Now, the substantive part of it is that it's very overwhelming evidence of the blood and the wounds that we're going to see. But I think that, to me, the most important things were he's a hired witness. He's not clear. Talks with an accent. He's too general.
Doesn't provide an alternative.
Doesn't provide an alternative.
Yep.
What happened?
I'm not sure that we're going to be able to come up with a good explanation.
I think even if we spent, an hour with Henry talk about the limits of science and the danger, they look at all this blood and say, well, in the right case maybe, but not in this case.
Right.
Here, you have to be able to know something about what happened. There's just too much blood, too much movement to not have some information. Because people have this image that we're saying she fell from the very top, so why aren't her bones broken?
Right.
And if she fell that far, how could she possibly get up again? I mean, somehow we have to paint the scenario that this happened 3 or 4 stairs up. She fell, and fell back and hit her head, started bleeding, slipped and fell again.
I think Henry is not really comfortable doing a lot more than poking holes.
So we need to think about that. Because that's clearly, at least in this context, the big question for them. The state has a theory, the defense doesn't. All the defense has is critiques.
I've got a theory that if she's, for example, if she's on the floor leaning against the chairlift, and she goes up and her feet slip out.
She never actually stood up at all. She's got her feet.
Right. Feet under, slip back again. She's got a 0.07 alcohol. She's got Valium. There's blood on the floor. You've got this thing, so every time she falls, she's hitting her head from about the same distance right on that metal thing.
So what's the overall bad news, good news, what?
Well, the overall bad news is, again, we don't have any. If we could,
We have no explanation to tell them.
David and I talked about doing an animation to reconstruct exactly how these injuries might be affected by a fall.
Yeah, I haven't. I haven't heard it. I don't want to hear it. Come on, guys. Come on. Where's Wilbur? Hey, Wilbur.
That you mentioned was the autopsy photos. It's so visceral. People just react.
Yeah.
People just react to them immediately.
Are they that gruesome? I'm not looking at them. Are they that awful?
Yeah, they're pretty bad. I mean, you look at them initially, you think, man, we couldn't. Your initial reaction to looking at the autopsy photos is, you can't get that from a fall. Which is one of our problems, because we can't precisely explain how you do it. It can get from a fall.
We can say they didn't come from a beating either, right?
Definitely did not come from a beating, and we're very strong on that. They got the burden of proof, so.
Yeah, but that burden of proof is pretty like...
It's like innocent until proven guilty, which we all know is horseshit.
So you're guilty the minute that they...
Yeah, I'd be sympathetic. People get up on that all the time. You just don't read them.
No, I am cynic on that. It's that innocent until proven guilty, I think, is... No, the overwhelming thing is police arrest you, you're guilty. This is what people believe.
Well, that's why, clearly the case is, and the ball of how did this case get transformed from accident as recorded by them initially to murder. David's thinking about taking the original report from Dr. Snell, our medical examiner, where he concluded that, in his opinion, she fell down. He actually offered an explanation.
That she fell on the third step and then hit her head somewhere else. It's fairly detailed.
The medical examiner says it's an accident while he was here, right?
Exactly.
So there was
No
no
single thing that Holland had to go on, right? Nothing.
And yet within, hell, 30 minutes of that son of a bitch coming here, it was a crime scene, and I was guilty, and that was it.
Mission failed. Return to base.
From ABC 11, this is Eyewitness News at 6. The case against Michael Peterson doesn't just involve his wife anymore. It involves a friend who died 18 years ago. Just like Kathleen Peterson, Ratliff was found dead at the bottom of a staircase. Eyewitness News reporter Anthony Wilson has more on the potentially explosive information. Elizabeth Ratliff was a friend of Michael Peterson. In fact, Peterson was with Ratliff the night before she was found dead in Germany. Ratliff's body was discovered at the bottom of a staircase in 1985, and prosecutors have implied the circumstances of her death mirror those of Michael Peterson's wife, Kathleen. She was found dead in the Peterson home back in January 2001.
Nope. County's reading last Friday evening.
Okay, well, you guys got a much better film now.
What did Margaret Ratliff tell you about what happened to her mother? Does she know any of the details about
She does. With the exception that her mother
died of a natural cause?
Didn't we look at this a few months ago, and didn't Mike give us an autopsy or something that said cause of death, stroke or cerebral hemorrhage or something like that? Right. And he told us that he had been with her the day before, I think with Patty. They had dinner or something.
But you know what the authorities are going to do? The police are going to assume that because she was found at the bottom of the stairs, they're going to try to link them together. Whether or not they're successful,
It's like the stairway killer. Is that the idea? Let's found a way to kill women 17 years apart. Right? I mean, this is like in the mid-'80s.
Yeah, this is 1985, I believe.
So he strikes like every 17 years by finding some way to kill women on a stairway. Is that the...
Right. And of course, it helps the case. It's, you know, if you have two people found at the bottom of the stairs, they're going to try to bring that in one way or the other.
I mean, I don't know what's there. Maybe nothing. But if it is nothing, we need to find out it's nothing. So I'm not going to be very comfortable being surprised by something that happened in Germany.
Team deathmatch. The mission is simple. Kill them all.
I know you don't know much about the case, but we all want whatever. What's your dialogue on reaction?
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Okay. Someone said that it was another wife that died in similar circumstances.
I think, I don't know whether she was white or was an accident that it came up that she may have fallen in similar circumstances. And they were going to, there's someone that said they need to check that out.
This second incident in Europe casts a long shadow. It really does create a lot of doubt. So I think that people are going to really question his innocence because of this. Because the two instances, as I remember reading, were so very similar.
The Germany thing is out there already. We're not going to get rid of that. It's there. You know, there is no getting rid of it. All we can do right now is...
I agree with David. Can I make a suggestion? I'd like to know, if you would ask me one more time, what would you want to know about the Germany thing? What would you want to know about it? And then answer the question.
Do you want me to start out by clarifying the Germany thing?
Yes, I think now that it's on the table, I think what we have to here are the facts that are known right now about Germany. We know what we're going to be able to show. There was no financial benefit from it. He took care of the kids for the next 16 years.
There was no evidence of any affair.
Do you want to mention 70,000 or not?
You can say that there was a $70,000 life insurance policy, and that's all the money that.
And it was left to the girls, right?
Right, which he spent on the girls.
Which was spent on the girl.
Taking effective fire.
Is that during the night or the few days following the death of Mrs. Peterson, the police overheard some people talking about, well, this is really a double tragedy because Martha's mother died in the same way. And that is why the police decided to check into it and go to Germany and find out what the circumstances were.
I think the defense would benefit from this story being brought up in the case because my opinion is gone, like you say, high respect, moral character, for Peterson, the man who did that, take on
To say I have a totally new respect for men. Anybody can take on someone else's children and raise them, and they're not blood children because when they are forced to be things that go with me or go to the state or whatever.
I'm just thinking that the group in general jumped to a conclusion of innocence because he adopted her two children, the woman who died. I don't think you can do that. Let's assume that we had a feeling. Okay, you're going to read one of these books now. Suppose he tries to get married and does, then adopting the children would make it different, wouldn't it?
Enemy.
So he's at the airport. Axel's going to meet us at the airport. Listen, is where Elizabeth was living at the time of her death. That's also where Mike and Patty were living. And one of the first people we're going to see is Patty or Sal. Where is Patty living now? Oh, she's still living in but a different house. Different house. It's just a little village. He is taking us over to the apartment. She says a woman lives there but doesn't know her, so we're just going to go in and knock on the door. Hopefully she'll let us in. Elizabeth's old apartment.
Well, in my mind, there was sort of two main things that I think we should be focusing on when we go over there. First of all,
fuck all.
We need to understand what the relationship was between Mike and Patty on the one hand, on the other. The second thing I think we need to really focus on is what happened on the morning that Elizabeth Ratliff died. What did Barbara Palladino find her? Conditions like, what